Somebody got their drone flying out here. It's pretty dope. Maybe one day I'll get one of those. So yesterday or the day before or the other day when I recorded episode 1, I realized when I watched it through, I did a whole lot of just rambling about stress, depression, anxiety, and the like. Even though there was a lot of pieces there was a lot that I just kind of rambled and it wasn't as coherent as I wanted. And so going forward, I'm gonna try to make sure that I'm more consistent with the messages that I want to offer y'all, be clear and kind of concise. So, in a nutshell, I tend to concentrate on mental health to be more concrete. You know, when we talk about anxiety and depression, sometimes it seems like there's these abstract concepts or abstract emotions that are untouchable. They just happen to us, and it just seems like they're in some way not something that we can affect with our behavior or something that we can tangibly do. And so through my research and through just reading a lot around this, through my own experience, going through my own anxiety, my anxious moments, my anxiety attacks, quote unquote, and my depressive moments, I had to make it more concrete for myself. And so I went into more like the physiological definition of anxiety and depression, which is a lot more helpful and key because you start to realize that these things are just states in our body. They're just physical sensations. And it decreases the fear of anxiety and depression because now we're not talking about some abstract, kind of untouchable emotion or just kind of feeling. We're talking about actual physical states, things that's happening within our body that we can affect, that we can manage, that we can impact and influence. And so that's why I talk about the nervous system so much. That's why I talk about muscular tension. That's why I talk about our relationship with our physical body to the environment that we're in, because those are things that we can directly or indirectly control to really change and alter our anxious states, our depressive feelings. And I like to talk about anxiety and depression in terms of our hormonal intake and balance. Again, in the last episode, I talked about depression being more like a depleted state, a depletion, and that relates to specific hormones in our body that are certain organs in our body that produces these hormones around our anxiety, our anxious nervous system, and they're depleted, they're exhausted, and they have to heal, they have to rejuvenate, and that takes a little time. And so when we understand mental health in that kind of format, it gives us a little bit more control when we realize like this is just things that's happening in our physical body. So give you an example. There's 3 different hormones that are produced in our intestines that is directly related to our mood and our state. There's adrenaline, there's cortisol, and there's epinephrine, something like that. And then there's serotonin, which is related to our sleep state. And so serotonin, adrenaline, cortisol, all of these things affect how anxious we are, how nervous we are. And they really wreak havoc on our nervous system because they're basically a shot of epinephrine. They're a shot of drinking a whole bunch of coffee. It's like having a shot of cocaine, literally. That's what it is. It's not literally cocaine, but it's like a hormone. It's literally our own bodies producing these liquid inside of us that makes us on go, that amps us up. And so when these things happen, they're good hormones when you have a bear behind us, when somebody is chasing you with a knife, or when you're at an event and all of a sudden somebody starts shooting. You need those hormones to get out of that situation, to make sure that you're safe. Somebody's trying to break into your home. You need those hormones to help you get up and take action. Those hormones are not so good when you're just worried about work. They're not so good when we're trying to lay down and go to sleep. They're not so good when we're creating and imagining something in the future is going to happen to us that oftentimes never do, and they end up keeping us up, or they make us a lot more, our minds race a little bit more about it, or we feel these sensations in our body. They make our heart beat, they make our hands sweat, they make they make us sweat, they make us have heat flashes, they put a funny sensation in the pit of our stomach. Those hormones are not so good when it comes to those pieces. And so we can control those. We have a direct and indirect control or impact on how those things come about. And so that's why when we're talking about anxiety and depression, I like to talk about it in those terms, because it gives you a sense of power, that this is not something that's just happening to you, that this is a part of our bodies developing a system like this over thousands of years in order for us to survive on this earth. And now in 2018, in the 21st century, it works in some situations and we need it, but in other situations, it's something that doesn't always serve us. We get anxious or we get depressed around things that really don't require our bodies to react that way. And so hence in America, we live a very anxiety prone society, very depressed society. We're depressed about our jobs. We're depressed about our relationships. We're depressed about where we live at. We're depressed about, our fathers, our mothers. We're depressed about many different things. We get anxious about all of those things, everything above. And so it doesn't serve us well. And so it means that everyone in America has to find some way to practice some type of method to help maintain our bodies in that balance. So that way we're not depleting our hormone and our resource, our energy system, which is those hormones, and we're not keeping ourselves extremely anxious. So what is the solution? The solution is this. In my experience, the only thing that really works is everything. And you might say like, Dad, what are you talking about? Well, the only thing we have to bring to any practice to help heal our nervous system and to help us come down from our anxiety and to push us out of our depressive state is just commitment. That's it. Commitment. Commitment to doing something. Because you could read a pamphlet and many different practices, many different things that people say helps with anxiety or helps with depression. And guess what? All of it works. All of it works. The only thing you need is just commitment. Commitment to doing it over a long haul. That's it. And when you combine certain practices with other things, you really increases your body's chances of being resistant against stress and anxiety, resistant against being anxious, and resistant against being depressed. We have natural methods to be antidepressant. We have natural anti-anxiety mechanisms within our body waiting for us to activate it each and every day. And so, what do you mean by commitment, Daddy? Well, committing yourself to breathing, practicing breathing, so that way you can combat that high level breathing that we do when we're anxious. When we're anxious, we're breathing from up here, and that's not natural for our natural breathing patterns. When you study babies, watch babies, all babies breathe from their diaphragm. They breathe from down here. That's a natural human physiological way of how we breathe. And so when we're breathing low, we're getting more oxygen to our bodies, into our lungs, into our red blood cells, and it allows different hormones in our brain, in our neurons, in our brain, and in our gut to be able to produce the right hormones and release tension. So breathing is important. Committing ourselves to a breathing practice. That's one. Two, learning how to relax our bodies. And there's many different mechanisms on how you could do that. The one that I favored the most was progressive muscle relaxation. I think that's a really good method on how to relax my body. And it worked well for me. It's one of those where I've laid down, and just the mere fact of concentrating on different parts of my body helps to refocus my attention. Two, the ability to recognize tension in different large parts of my body, which is where a lot of anxiety gets held up at. It gets locked into your muscles. And that helped for me, progressive muscle relaxation. But there's some people who swear by yoga. It works. Progressive muscle relaxation works. Yoga works. Acupuncture works. Massage therapy, that's why they call it therapy, because it works. And then there's some people who says the best anti-anxiety and antidepressant is exercise. And guess what? It works. If you commit yourself to 30 minutes a day for 5 days out the week, maybe 6 days out the week, where you are doing some nice cardio, not nothing where you just killing yourself on a treadmill or running across a whole lake. No, but just 30 minutes of a good pace where you're breathing big and breathing deep, and you're pushing your body to produce some nice breathing into your body, and you're releasing a lot of those cortisols into your bloodstream and eventually pee it out. That's good cardio, and it works. It's a very good anti-anxiety piece. And antidepressant, because your body is producing not only oxygen activating certain parts of your organs, but it's actually producing certain hormones such as what is it called? It's a certain hormone that we call the happy juice. I'll get the name for you, and I'll make sure I highlight it in the text. But it's our happy juice, and we naturally produce it when we commit ourselves to cardio. Yeah, it'll come to me. And so that works. It works. And I think anything that you commit yourself to doing, especially if it's one or two things that you're doing, it's going to work. The key to working through and balancing ourselves and healing ourselves with our anxious and depressive states is just commitment. And it's commitment to adopting a new lifestyle. There's some people who says, I'm going to de-stress myself by purging and healing, and I'm going to eat better and drink more water. And they might not be big on the exercising piece. They might not be big on the yoga and the stretching and the therapy. They might not be big on that, but they just might find all the nutritional supplements that help them to produce the right balance in their body to put themselves back into a healing state. And it all works. The key thing is just commitment. Committing ourselves to practicing something that alters our lifestyle to be more balanced, to be a little bit more healthy. And that's all it is. So part 2 of this, episode 2 and part 2 of this series, and this is the only part 1 and part 2, is just I wanted to focus on what works. Because a lot of times when Daddy is talking to y'all about being anxious and being depressed, I never really get to explain what is it that Daddy do. And I've done all of the above. I had to, when I was in my worst anxious moments and my depressive states, I had to do everything, drink more water, progressive muscle relaxation. I had to exercise 7 days out the week. I did my yoga. I did massage therapy. I did everything. And what worked was just being committed to a few, because your body is going to respond to it. And when you realize that only thing you have to put on the table is commitment, you know that everything that you have to help you feel more balanced, to feel less stressed, to feel less depressed, is all within your control. You are your safe space. And so regardless of where you go, whether you're afraid to leave the home, you're afraid to get on the bus, you're afraid to get in front of a stage and speak to people, you're afraid to start that new job, you have everything inside you because you're going to put that commitment to continuing those things that help de-stress you and depress you. So I'll stop there. I love y'all, and I will see y'all soon.